Hello and welcome to Monday Motivation. Today I want to talk about the tree of knowledge. Now this is something that we hear people talking about sometimes, and it's when they actually tie their horse up to a post or a tree or something in order to have apparently some sort of training effect on this horse. So we often hear people doing this when the horse has been naughty, has behaved badly, or the horse has been disrespectful, or what other reasons are there? When the horse is bucked or something. They also do it to young horses. They tie the horse up to the tree of knowledge, and I suppose what they're trying to do, I mean, there isn't a reason this is done, and it's often said to give the horse some time to think about what it's done. So I suppose repent. And it's also commonly used to teach patience. Apparently tying your horse up to the tree of knowledge teaches your horse patience. And I'm talking about this because I did read something on Facebook recently that said, this young horse had been, quite naughty or disruptive or disrespectful or something. And so it was tied up to this tree of knowledge for like 2 hours or something. Apparently it was much better when it came back. So it was a huge success, and this person was generally promoting the use of tying your horse up to a post. So the intended idea of this training, we call it, is to teach more respect, more patience, to make the horse easier to handle in some way, and to discourage the horse from repeating that behavior, whatever it might have been. So let's take the behavior problem. Let's say the horse bucked really badly when you were riding it, and you thought that was terrible, so you took the horse and you tied it to the tree of knowledge to give it some time to think about its behavior and to repent. Now, we've got a few problems with this, aren't there? Firstly, the horse is never going to associate its behavior when it was being ridden with anything that happened more than 3 seconds later, which was it being tied to the tree of knowledge probably 20 minutes later. So the horse is not going to have any association between the two things. So that it's never going to work as a punishment. And that's the other thing people fail to admit to themselves, is that something like this it's what we call negative punishment. Now, we talk about negative reinforcement a lot, and that's the removal of pressure, and that, or whatever it is, we're removing something that the horse doesn't want. And negative reinforcement, we use that a lot. So, for example, rein tension, or let's use your legs, for example, because that's a common use of negative reinforcement. And quite often people don't really realize that's what it is. But let's say your horse is walking and you'd like the horse to trot. You might put your leg on the side of the horse. When the horse trots, you remove your leg. So what the horse didn't want there, which makes it negative, and the fact that you took it away, right? The horse didn't want to feel your legs on its side. And so the negative reinforcement meant you took that away, and when the horse responded the way you wanted it to do. Tying your horse to the tree of knowledge is negative punishment. Now, it's punishment because it comes after a behavior. So, and it's punishment, negative punishment, because you're taking something away. Now, what are you taking away from the horse? You're taking away its freedom, its ability to move, and you're also taking away its social group as well, because you'll be tying it up alone. So the horse is going to be there alone. So you're taking things away, and it's definitely a punishment. So it's a negative punishment, as opposed to positive punishment, something like smacking the horse with the whip or something. That would be a positive punishment. So it's a negative punishment, and the people do it with the intention of teaching the horse patience. It's the biggest thing that I hear it used for. Unfortunately, I don't think that is going to be the result at all. There are some likely results, though. It is certainly, all training works. So people say, I like this training because it works. Well, pretty much all training works. It's just whether it's actually going to work in the way you want it to work, and whether it's ethical to do in the first place or not. So that's a problem. So it will work. It will certainly teach your horse something. Let's have a look at what it will probably teach your horse. I think the first thing it's definitely going to do is increase your horse's stress levels. Horses don't like being isolated from their herd or anybody. So quite often those horses are tied to the tree of knowledge and left completely alone. So that is definitely going to increase its stress levels. If you increase a horse's stress levels, also with that increases its fear levels. So one thing that is going to probably make it do is make the horse more fearful in the future. So especially if it's going to spend a long time in isolation there, what you're going to find when you do ride that horse next is probably also more fearful of new situations. So that's something to watch out for. You're probably going to teach the horse quite rapidly how to pull back. Now, you might be very smart and have tied the horse securely so it cannot get away. And I've seen that happen quite a lot, where a horse is tied securely to something and it can't get away. But you will certainly teach the horse, even if that's the case, you will certainly teach the horse how to try to, because any horse is going to try and leave that situation. So when that happens, not only is the horse likely to have learned to pull back in other situations, when you then go and tie the same horse to a bit of baling twine tomorrow, and it gets nervous about something because it's generally more stressed and the underlying level of stress is higher, so it is more likely to take fright at something, then your horse is going to pull back and it's going to get a release from that pressure quite quickly. So it's very easy to teach a horse to pull back. So you will have done that. Now, if that happens and the horse does or doesn't get away, it doesn't really matter. Pulling back hurts. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Even tied to baling twine. Have you ever tried to break baling twine with your hand? Like, it's really strong. So you can imagine what the feeling of that is on the horse's poll, even in a webbing head collar, which hopefully will break. But, you know, in a string or rope head collar, even worse, because that pressure is so much more intensive when with just a thin bit of string around the horse's poll. So the horse will definitely get hurt. So you have broken rule number 2, that the horse will can't get hurt. So the horse will be generally more fearful of things, so probably work in particular. If this is usually done after the horse works, so you are going to make the horse more fearful of work in general. And of course also of you, because you're the one that tied the horse up and left it in isolation and all of that sort of thing. So generally the horse is going to be more fearful of you, more fearful of work, and more fearful of anything new, and probably also leaving its herd. So, you know, the barn sow horse, the horse that doesn't like to go and work on its own, that of course will increase hugely if you do isolate your horse on purpose from time to time. So, okay, that's all well and good. So what can we do instead? You know, let's say we need to teach the horse patience, or we need to teach the horse respect, or whatever it is that we want to teach. And just know that these 2 things that the tree of knowledge apparently is so jolly good at teaching are completely unmeasurable. I mean, you can't measure how respectful your horse is. You can't measure how patient your horse is, because there's no standard. There's no way of measuring it. So, you know, if you really want to teach your horse something, know what it is you want to teach it and make sure you can measure it before you start to teach it. It's like the round pen. We talked about the round pen last week, and, you know, a lot of people use the round pen to teach respect, but all that means is they end up chasing the horse around and around and around until it comes and stands inside next to them. And then they assume that that's taught respect, but that's not really respect. It's just sort of common sense. You can either be chased around the outside or you can stand in the middle with me. It's up to you, horse. What do you want to do? The sensible horse goes, oh, well, I'll stand in the middle with you then. I'm not sure the horse has learned anything, but even if it had, we still can't measure that. We can't measure that respect that we think that we've got. So if you want to teach something, make sure that you can measure it before you start, because otherwise it's a really, really vague target, and the horse often ends up getting punished as a result, because in the round pen example, we end up chasing the horse more, and that is a punishment, because we don't feel that we have the respect we want. Whereas if we went into the round pen and said, well, I want the horse to turn away from me, which actually is probably the same thing when you think about it, because for a lot of people, for me certainly, you know, respect for me personally, I don't use the word anymore because it's so confusing to people, is I control your feet. So I can move your feet left and right. I can move you towards me. I can move you away from me. And you're obedient to those cues. And in the round pen, that's really easy to teach. You go and you teach inside and outside turns, and the horse moves to you and moves away from you. And I can measure that as well. So that's a really good thing to do. So let's say that you want to stop using your tree of knowledge. You want to start doing something else. What I would suggest is you just be with your horse. So if you don't want to teach it something specific, just spend time with your horse, grooming it or leading it or standing with it, talking to it. Because that way the horse isn't isolated. The horse won't be feeling stressed or anxious. If you feel the horse's emotional level is getting too high, then you can lower it. And you're there to actually teach the horse something. So the horse will take away something really positive from that interaction, whereas there's nothing positive probably taken away from an interaction where the horse is tied up alone. So it's really about being proactive with your training rather than reactive. And if you do resort to punishments like tying your horse to the tree of knowledge, then you are being very reactive to the horse. And I think you're much better off actually taking charge, setting a goal, having some plans, and getting out there and being proactive about it and teaching your horse some things. Work out what it is you want the horse to know and then set about teaching that. So how do you do that? Well, it's easy, right? You just join the Kandoo Equine online training system and start with module number 1, lesson number 1, and off you go and work your way through all of them down to module number 18, and then get onto the case studies and everything else. And it works step by step by step by step. So ever think, oh, I don't know what to teach today? Open up the training and find out. Anyway, I'll see you in there. Bye now.